What really happened with your host, Mike Rivero. You're listening to the Republic Broadcasting Network, where you'll find out what the Fukushima's going on.
And welcome to our show today. It's Monday, August 31st, 2020, start of a brand new week. And hopefully we're not going to have the gremlins hit us that hit us on Friday. And we still don't know exactly what happened. But Dave and I spent the weekend going through cables and trying to figure out what was going on. But so far, so good. We've been running our little system here for about 2.5 hours this morning. And so far, no problems. So we should be able to get through the show without any problems. Anyway, we've got a lot to talk about today. We're going to talk about news for about the first half hour of the show. Then we're going to open up the phone lines for everybody to pile on in with your comments, questions, and observations. Mike is in our control room keeping us out of trouble. So let's get right into it. Okay. We did have major internet problems over the weekend. I don't know if it had anything to do with what we experienced on Friday, but U.S. internet service provider CenturyLink suffered a major technical outage on Sunday after a misconfiguration in one of its data centers created havoc all over the internet. I remember at one point I had trouble getting through to the Washington Post server. Anyway, due to the technical nature of the outage involving both firewall and BGP routing, the error spread outward from CenturyLink's network and impacted other internet service providers, ending up causing connectivity problems for many more of the companies. The list of tech giants who had services go down because of the CenturyLink outage includes big names like Amazon, Twitter, Microsoft, Xbox Live, EA, Blizzard, Steam, Discord, Reddit, Hulu, Duo Security, Imperva, Namecheap, OpenDNS, and many more. Well, that would have explained why I couldn't get to the Washington Post, because I was using OpenDNS. All righty, there has been a shooting of a Trump supporter at the Portland riots. Let's call them what they are here. Guy by the name of Jay Bishop was wearing a Prayer Patriots hat and shirt, and apparently was literally, he and a friend were literally stalked by leftist demonstrators before he was killed. The family has set up a GoFundMe. Trump is already out there, expressing his regrets. And unfortunately, or maybe fortunately, because it reveals the kind of people they are, the left-wing people are out there saying, good, we've killed another fascist. And they're just celebrating that this guy got killed. And it's just out there. Anyway, Democrat Ted Wheeler is blaming Trump for the Portland violence after this protester got killed. Don't forget, this is the guy who rejected Trump's National Guard offer last week. So Portland's Democratic mayor blamed President Trump on Sunday for the violence in Portland after a right-wing protester was murdered last night. Wheeler's attempt to deflect blame comes after he told Trump last week to stay away following the president offering federal assistance to end the violence in the city. What has been going on? 94, 95 days now? The mayor can't get it under control. It's time for the feds to step on in here. Anyway, NPR is out there saying that declaring Portland unrest a riot might actually be racist, and you shouldn't use that word, because riot's going to be seen as racist. I don't think so. I mean, riots, as far as I can tell, are covering all races, creeds, colors, and genders and orientations and everything. A riot is a riot is a riot. Now, Joe Biden fails to condemn Antifa and Black Lives Matter by name for the repeated violence and is trying to suggest that Trump's own supporters were responsible for the death of the Trump supporter with the Prayer Patriot hat on it. And that's really, really out there. So anyway, Biden failed on Sunday to condemn two far-left groups, Antifa and Black Lives Matter, for repeated violence that has happened over the summer. Biden's failure to condemn the two far-left groups by name came as he released a statement on the shooting that happened in Portland last night that resulted in a Trump supporter being murdered. Apparently down in Los Angeles, there's a report that shots were fired at a pro-Trump caravan in an LA suburb in Woodland Hills, which is an upscale neighborhood. And the suspect is on the run after a standoff with the police. The incident unfolded about 11:30 a.m. local time in the 2600 block of Ventura Boulevard as the torrent of cars with Trump supporters was streaming past Woodland Hills, a neighborhood in the San Fernando Valley region of Los Angeles, California. I've been down that way many times myself. All righty. Pardon me. Following the shooting death of a Trump supporter in Portland, Democrats have taken to acknowledging increasing violence at protests across the country, but continue to try and lay the blame at the feet of President Donald Trump. Many Democrats made it clear through Sunday interviews they believe President Trump is to blame for increasingly violent protests across the country. Okay, I have long condemned looting, violence, threats, but let's take a step back. This isn't just happening in one place. It's happening all over the country. It's happening under Donald Trump's watch. Senator Amy Klobuchar told ABC News on Sunday morning. The senator was reacting to a clip of a speech where the president called out protesters who harassed his supporters leaving the Republican National Convention. One of these supporters was activist Brendan Straka, who claimed he and his colleagues were assaulted and even captured video of the demonstrators hurling homophobic slurs at him. All righty. A St. Louis police officer was shot in the head while responding to the city's south side, remains in critical condition, but the gunman who shot him and one other officer was finally arrested after a 12-hour standoff. All right. Both Trump and Biden are out there campaigning today. Biden is on Fox News right now, as a matter of fact, saying violence will not bring change. So he's trying to walk a very fine line, of not condemning Black Lives Matter and Antifa, who form part of their voter base. But on the other hand, he's trying to avoid the Democrats looking like they want this chaos in the streets. Of course they want the chaos in the streets. That's the only thing they've got to blame Trump for. The COVID-19 has burned out. People don't care about that anymore. The economy is showing signs of recovery. All they've got left is chaos in the streets. Oh, it's got to be Trump's fault. He's in charge. And yet, as we reported over in Portland, Trump's offer of sending in the National Guard was rebuffed by the Democratic mayor. So the president is out there warning, if the left gains power, they will demolish the suburbs, confiscate your guns, and appoint justices who will wipe away your Second Amendment and other constitutional freedoms. And yes, that is the way the left tends to talk about these things. They're control freaks over there in the Democratic liberals. They want to control everything. They want to control what medicines you take, what food you eat, what food you can't eat. They want to take away the guns so you'll do as you're told. Now, C-SPAN opened up their phone lines, and they got a remarkable number of Democratic viewers called in the previous night declaring their support for Donald Trump in the upcoming 2020 election. I'm a longtime Democrat, born and raised. After watching tonight, I've made up my mind. I'm definitely going to vote for Donald Trump, said one of the many voters who dialed in. There were so many callers defecting from the Democratic Party that C-SPAN changed their phone line labels. Anyway. President Trump gets a huge bump from the Republican National Convention. Polling shows the President Trump is way up in polls, the overall vote, Electoral College, and swing states. Again, depending upon who you ask, the pro-Biden polls still show him 6 points ahead, but it's dwindling rapidly to the point where Michael Moore, the filmmaker, who correctly predicted that Trump was going to win in 2016, says he's on course to send Biden down to defeat in November. Meanwhile, an Iowa judge has ordered a local county auditor to invalidate 50,000 absentee ballot requests, agreeing with the Trump campaign argument that a local elections commissioner broke the law by pre-filling the applications with voters' personal information. That's a tacky no-no. You're not supposed to do that. Judge Ian Thornhill ordered Lynn County Auditor Joel Miller to notify the affected voters in writing that their absentee ballot requests cannot be processed because they should not have been pre-filled with their personal information. The impacted voters would have to fill out new requests or vote in person on Election Day. Miller said he would comply with the order and send new blank forms to the voters in September. Already they're playing games, and the Trump campaign has filed similar challenges in other counties in Iowa. Turning to the domestic protests here, college football teams cancel practice as the Jacob Blake protests spread to universities. So maybe they'll change their mind and come on back the way the NBA did. Here in Indiana, Representative Jim Banks, who's a Republican, introduced a House bill last week that would render those convicted of vandalism and violent looting during a protest ineligible for federal unemployment money, which have been enhanced in the wake of COVID-19. The Support Peaceful Protest Act would also require those convicted to providing restitution for the cost of federal policing in a sum to be determined by the court. Over in Washington, D.C., an unnamed speaker was haranguing the crowd Saturday night, saying that he was ready to put police in the blanking grave. The unnamed speaker could be heard saying that he wanted to take his grievances to the U.S. Senate and the House of Representatives, and he even said that he was ready to burn down the White House. We're heading in a bad direction. Over in Pacific University, staff psychologist Dr. Shirley Lay is hosting a weekly webinar series called Rising from the Margins. Lay said the platform is dedicated to those who've been perceived as inferior or less worthy due to their background, and she came out and said, every white person in this country is racist. Not that we're dealing in generalities or anything tacky like that. And on Saturday, there was a massive Trump vehicle parade through Portland, Oregon. And for the record, there's never been a boat or car parade for Joe Biden that anybody knows of. For the past 3 months, Portland has come under nightly attacks by far-left Antifa and Black Lives Matter rioters. During the Trump vehicle parade, several leftists positioned themselves on at least one overpass and launched projectiles at the passing pro-Trump vehicles. They were so proud of their lawlessness that they even filmed it. Over in Minneapolis, Officer Derek Chauvin has asked the judge to dismiss the George Floyd murder charges because he died due to the drugs in his system and not the officer's knee on his neck, as prosecutors say the cops inflicted gratuitous pain. So on Friday, an attorney for Chauvin filed a motion in the court that argued there was no probable cause to support the second-degree murder, third-degree murder, and second-degree manslaughter charges pinned to his client. The motion claimed that Floyd's death was caused by drugs in his system, not Chauvin pressing his knee to Floyd's neck for an extended period. The father of a teenager shot dead in Seattle within an autonomous protest zone that formed inside the city is seeking $3 billion in damages from the state and local government, accusing them of permitting a state of lawlessness. Horace Lorenzo Anderson, 19, was shot and killed in the early hours of June 20th within the Capitol Hill protest zone known as CHOP, or the Capitol Hill Organized Protest. Marcel Levin Long has been charged with his murder, but has not been arrested. Okay, now, this is the camel's nose under the edge of the tent here. California has, the Senate has given near final legislative approval for a proposal that sets up a task force that will decide how to pay compensation, reparations for slavery. And I think this is very, very dangerous. It's a very, very dangerous precedent. For one thing, as I recall, and maybe my history is a little fuzzy here, feel free to call and correct me, I don't think California was a slave state prior to the Civil War. So anyway, there's a whole slew of articles out there that look at the future of our country with a great deal of negativity, and I'm going to give you some examples. From PatriotRising.com, there's an article, Barbarians at the Gates, Is Our Great Republic in Danger of Falling? And it says, what Americans seem to have lost is hope, and I think that's intentional. The media on every channel beats the public down with talk of sickness, possible school closures, the economy, riots, violence, and politics. There never seems to be any good news, and all the while, everyone is told to stay home whenever possible, while protesters are told that their actions are patriotic and in some cases necessary to get their point out. Good people are living in fear while the cities are in free fall. So, of course, they feel helpless and at the mercy of their elected officials. Speaking out is not only not good, it's going against the grain. Americans are told to not question what's happening, just shut up, put on your mask, and do as you're told. By the way, there were 10 fatalities in Chicago over the weekend, for those of you keeping score. Another article, this one coming from PatriotRising.com. These people want to convince everyone that looting is A-OK. And it says, what happens when more business owners decide that if the police aren't going to protect their property, they'll protect it themselves? What happens when they take away the joyousness of looting? What happens when the rational people of the United States of America say that's enough and back it up? Because that's exactly what's going to happen. It did happen back during the Rodney King riots when the police ran like heck. Those people who'd been prudent enough to acquire firearms, with the 15-day waiting period before the ammo ban, protected their property, protected their stores. I remember seeing this one video of a Korean gentleman up on the roof of his store with an AR-15, keeping the mobs away. Another article, this one from Unz.com, called It's Simply, It's Gonna Blow. Hoo boy, she's ready to explode, go high order, smoking ruins, dead bodies, seething hatreds, and a country that can't be put back together. It may not happen, but she looks ready. No one is in charge of this collapsing shell game of a country. In Louisville, hundreds of armed blacks threatened to burn the blank down, meaning Louisville, if they don't get their way. All cringe before them with reason. They have guns. Larger numbers marched in Georgia, armed, ready to rock and roll. Black Lives Matter says it will go into the suburbs to get whitey. Who will stop them? Not the government. It fears them. Weimar, Kentucky, an American Free Corps. Story coming out of Investment Watch blog. Democrat-run counties across the U.S. are encouraging illegal immigrants to take the census to gain seats in Congress. Now, the census is supposed to be a count to establish congressional districts. That's what it says in the Constitution. Implicit in that is that only legal U.S. citizens are allowed to take the census. But the Democrats are getting the illegals to fill out the census forms to run up the numbers so that they can have more congressional districts. They're cheating. They're cheating the system from top to bottom, from left to right. All right, let's talk a little bit about COVID-19. It's still out there. The CDC has come on out with new figures showing that in 94% of the cases of those who are listed as having died from COVID-19, another disease was also at work on the victim. 94% of COVID deaths had an underlying condition. Only 6% died of COVID-19 itself. So that's how they were running up the numbers. And don't forget, those COVID tests have a lot of false positives. And in one case, the PCR test, it's testing for a segment of DNA we naturally have in our bodies from birth. Now, the story, this one coming out of Daily Mail in Great Britain, up to 90% of people diagnosed with coronavirus may not be carrying enough of it to infect anyone else. This, according to the latest studies. The experts are saying the tests are simply too sensitive. Now, they've discovered a new mutated coronavirus strain. It's 10 times more infectious, but less deadly. They've discovered it in Indonesia as COVID-19 cases surge in the country. Over in New York, the state liquor authority has banned dancing in bars and weddings in an effort, in an effort to prevent the spread of COVID-19. Okay, pardon me. It looks like Governor Andrew Cuomo isn't done banning all sorts of events in New York. On Thursday, August 20th, the New York State Liquor Authority announced that dancing is no longer allowed in bars and restaurants throughout the city to prevent the further spread of the Wuhan coronavirus. Aside from banning dancing in bars and restaurants in New York, dancing has also been prohibited at wedding receptions. The city's liquor authority continues to declare a war on fun, enumerating other activities that are now banned during the pandemic, particularly cornhole, darts, exotic dancing, karaoke, and pool. Comedy shows have been banned in the city to encourage social distancing and prevent the spread of infections. What a dull place to live. No wonder people are leaving. People are leaving New York. I mean, the moving companies are doing a land office business. Trucks are rolling and people are getting out there. Hawaii is rolling out mandatory COVID-19 testing checkpoints on the H3, which is a major Oahu highway. It cuts right through the middle of the island of Oahu, with mandatory vaccines and quarantine camps soon to follow. One of the reasons why I'm glad we're now in Indiana here. Okay, Robert Kennedy Jr. is over in Berlin talking about vaccines and setting up Children's Health Defense Europe with organizers Dr. Heiko Schoening, MD, and attorneys Marcus Heinz and Rolf Kerpenstein. And apparently they drew a crowd of 1 million people. He spoke near the Brandenburg Gate, where his uncle, President John F. Kennedy, gave his famous Ich bin ein Berliner speech in 1963. RFK Jr. spoke today to the largest crowd in German history, 1 million people from every nation in Europe protesting Bill Gates' biosecurity agenda, the rise of the authoritarian surveillance state, and the pharma-sponsored coup d'etat against liberal democracy. Berlin, wir fahren nach Berlin. We'll be right back after these words from our sponsor. And welcome back to our show here. And a reminder that Republic Broadcasting Network is in a perpetual fundraiser, and we need your help to stay on the air and keep doing what we're doing, which is get the information that you need to make good decisions with. And we really need your help. We don't have large corporations sending us lots of money, along with requests that we treat certain stories certain ways. We don't have any philanthropists who feel that truth-telling deserves any kind of financial support. So we need your help, and we need it now. The postal address where you can send a check, money order, or if you prefer anonymity, cash, is Republic Broadcasting Network, 2251 Double Creek Drive, number 302, Round Rock, Texas, 78664. The phone number where you can make a credit or debit card donation is 800-724-2719, extension 3. The network thanks you. All right, turning to the international news now. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo is defending arms sales to Saudi Arabia even after a damning watchdog report on Yemen. And apparently the watchdog report said the State Department failed to, quote, fully assess, end quote, the risk of civilian deaths in war-torn Yemen. Pompeo said that his department did everything by the book in regards to arms sales to Riyadh in May of 2019. I am proud of the work that my team did. We got a really good outcome. We prevented the loss of lives, he claimed. That's a bit of a stretch. How do you prevent losses of lives by pouring weapons into a war zone? Anyway. Tanks moved to Minsk as police hold back a massive protest at the gates of the Lukashenko residence. Defying a security services crackdown, tens of thousands of protesters demanding that Belarusian President Alexander Lukashenko step down engulfed the center of Minsk once again. This time on the occasion of the now 66-year-old leader's birthday on Sunday, tens of thousands were seen marching on the presidential residence. So things in Ukraine are definitely still going. Turkey intercepts 6 Greek F-16 jets in the Mediterranean as tensions rise. Turkey said on Saturday it will hold military exercises off northwest Cyprus for the next 2 weeks, 2 days after it intercepted 6 Greek F-16 fighters in the Mediterranean amid growing tensions with Athens over energy exploration rights. Video footage posted by the Turkish Defense Ministry on Friday purportedly showed Turkish Air Force planes preventing the Greek aircraft from entering the area where Turkey was operating. The F-16s had departed from the island of Crete and were heading towards southern Cyprus, the statement said. All righty. Syrian President Bashar al-Assad has issued a decree Sunday appointing a new cabinet without changing the heads of so-called sovereign portfolios, days after confirming Hussein Arnos as the country's premier. The decree, published on the president's social media channels, keeps the head of the Foreign Affairs, Defense, Interior, Economy, and Information ministries in their current posts, but changes those in charge of 12 other cabinet portfolios, including the ministries of Finance, Energy, and Public Health. The 29-minister government, which includes 3 female ministers, is the 5th to be formed since the outbreak of Syria's civil war in 2011. It came as Syria grapples with a grinding economic crisis, a spiraling coronavirus outbreak, and continued violence in the country's north. Here's an article from the American Conservative, and it asks a very pointed question. Are we deliberately trying to provoke a military crisis with Russia? Tensions are becoming dangerous in Syria and on Russia's back doorstep. A dangerous vehicle collision between U.S. and Russian soldiers in northeastern Syria on August 24th highlights the fragility of the relationship and the broader test of wills between the two major powers. A sober examination of U.S. policy toward Russia since the disintegration of the Soviet Union leads to 2 possible conclusions. One is that U.S. leaders in both Republican and Democratic administrations have been utterly tone-deaf to how Washington's actions are perceived in Moscow. The other possibility is that those leaders adopted a policy of maximum jingoistic swagger intended to intimidate Russia, even if it meant obliterating a constructive bilateral relationship and eventually risking a dangerous showdown. Washington's latest military moves, especially in Eastern Europe and the Black Sea, are stoking alarming tensions. All right, you remember those 4 ships that were seized in the Caribbean that were then diverted to Texas? Well, apparently a legal battle over one of those ships full of gasoline has ended with court approval to sell it to Colmar Americas for $2.75 million, which is less than half its current market value. The gasoline at one point was suspected of heading for Venezuela in violation of U.S. sanctions. The gasoline originated in Panama, and the company that chartered the ship officially was to send it to Aruba. The ship's owner, however, said they thought the ship was going to transfer the gasoline offshore to a ship operated by the Venezuelan oil company. So, the U.S. Navy has sent yet another warship through the Taiwan Strait for the second time in 2 weeks, days after an American destroyer sailed near disputed South China Sea islands amid rising tensions between Washington and Beijing. Remember the end of last week, we were talking about how China said they had escorted a U.S. warship out of the area, and the U.S. military said no, it did not happen. Taiwan's defense ministry confirmed the operation on Monday amid rising tensions between China and the United States. We're going to take another break for commercials. We'll be right back. Welcome back to our show here. And during the commercial break, I was watching the Fox News feed, and they're running a story how several states and cities are thinking about major tax hikes to cover their budget shortfalls caused by the COVID-19 pandemic. So basically, they order us to stay at home. Business suffers for it. Things get closed down. They're running out of money. So what are they going to do? They're going to raise taxes on people who are already struggling just to pay the rent. Now, the story is saying that the tax increases are going to be focused on the rich. That's not going to work. The rich are simply going to move to more tax-friendly places. And these states and cities are going to turn around taxing ordinary people again, because that's how it works. Anyway, getting on back to the international news here, the U.S. obviously does not understand law or the United Nations after thrice being defeated. Iranian Foreign Minister Mohammad Javad Zarif says the United States has once again threatened to impose restrictions on anyone and any entity dealing with the Islamic Republic, despite being dismissed by the United Nations Security Council 3 times. Strike 3 and you're out, I thought. Anyway, after being thrice rejected by the Security Council, the U.S. is now threatening to sanction anyone that comes between the U.S. and its snapback, Zarif said in a post on his Twitter account on Friday. So the U.S. is basically going rogue. The Security Council said no, and the U.S. said, well, we're going to do it anyway. That's a good definition of, or a good illustration of going rogue. Meanwhile, the U.S.-China game of chicken in the South China Sea does nothing to solve the dispute. It's a mindless and dangerous escalation. The dispute has escalated in the past days and weeks, with the U.S. slapping sanctions on Chinese officials and companies involved in the construction of several man-made islands in the region, and the U.S. and China's militaries facing off in increasingly provocative and confrontational encounters. Just insane here. Fresh clash erupts between Indian and Chinese troops in Pangong Tso. India and China have been at a border standoff along the 4,057-kilometer line of actual control since the last week of April. The violent face-off between the troops of the neighboring countries in Pangong Tso is 15 June, left 20 Indian Army soldiers dead, resulting in a series of disengagement talks at the diplomatic and military level. The Indian Army has revealed that fresh clashes erupted between the troops of China and India during the night on the 29th of August, when the People's Liberation Army carried out provocative military movements in the eastern Ladakh region. On the night of August 29th and 30th, People's Liberation Army troops violated the previous consensus arrived at during military and diplomatic engagements during an ongoing standoff in eastern Ladakh and carried out provocative military movements to change the status quo, said Colonel Aman Anand, PRO, Army. Now, you probably saw on TV today they were doing a big deal about how Jared Kushner was on this first commercial flight from Israel to the United Arab Emirates. What they're not reporting is that there were several explosions in Dubai and Abu Dhabi before that plane landed. One person has been killed and several people injured in 2 separate explosions in the United Arab Emirates capital, Abu Dhabi, and its tourism hub, Dubai. The incidents came as the first direct flight between Israel and the United Arab Emirates entered the Saudi airspace before landing in Abu Dhabi, which was hit by a rare blast shortly before the arrival of U.S. and Israeli officials. It appears that not all Emiratis are really happy with the UAE's rapprochement with Israel. Okay, Israel admits its troops are planting IEDs in a Palestinian town. And they talk about the 7-year-old Palestinian boy was walking with his mother just outside the West Bank village of Kafr Kadam, a few miles to the west of the city of Nablus. We reported on this last week, where the boy fortunately was not injured. It turns out, however, somebody was injured because they summoned a relative to investigate this strange orange and black package held down with rocks. The man unfortunately picked up the package and shook it, and exploded, injuring his face and hands. Along the popular path, they found another device, this time photographing it and throwing stones at it until it too exploded. So the Israeli forces are planting IEDs. Now, Israeli tanks hit Hamas after balloon attacks from Gaza. The Israeli army says its tanks have hit Hamas targets in Gaza Strip on Sunday after Palestinian balloon attacks across the border continued. Now, interestingly enough, today, Hamas is saying that they have reached a ceasefire agreement with Israel. We'll see how long that's going to hold. But good if they have. Besides, Netanyahu's got other things to worry about. There were 20,000 people showed up at an anti-Netanyahu protest, including 200 Hasidim. Jerusalem demonstration ends largely peacefully, which, if CNN's reporting it, means everything's on fire. And apparently thousands of Israelis took part in nationwide protests against Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu on Saturday evening, with the largest gathering taking place in Jerusalem, where demonstrators have staged weekly rallies across from the premier's residence. Some 200 Bratslav Hasidim joined the Jerusalem rally, angry at a government policy aimed at preventing their traveling to Uman, Ukraine, for an annual pilgrimage at the gravesite of a venerated rabbi. Turning to the economic news, Tennesseans begin receiving a $900 LWA unemployment payment, so good for them. Gold is rebounding on the weak dollar, with investors weighing Fed policy. Wall Street analysts are predicting a Trump victory and telling people to invest accordingly. And they had a bad day on the Dow, by the way. Not jump out of the window bad, but still bad. I mentioned this earlier in the show, but I'm going to mention it again. The New York City exodus. Fleet of moving trucks arrive in the Upper West Side, and dozens wait in line to hire U-Hauls as residents reeling from lockdown and the surge in homeless people call it quits, along with all the other restrictions that are going on there. New York is not a fun place to live anymore. Beijing official warns Chinese consumers will abandon iPhones if the U.S. bans WeChat. In a rare comment about potentially boycotting American products, China's foreign ministry spokesman warned Friday, if the Trump administration goes ahead with the ban on the popular messaging app WeChat from mid-September on, then it would result in Chinese consumers ditching iPhones and other Apple products, which they're making them over there anyway, and with China's respect for intellectual property, they'll just start cloning them. If WeChat is banned, then there'll be no reason why Chinese shall keep iPhone and Apple products. Foreign Ministry spokesman Zhao Lijian tweeted. We've talked about this already, but we're going to mention it again. There's been some really wicked weather all across the United States. I mean, we had the 2 hurricanes down there in the Gulf at the same time. Wildfires out in the West, which is not really weather, but still it's nature doing what nature does. And up in Iowa, their agriculture has just been trashed. First of all, by a major storm and by a mega drought, which is forming across the West, parts of the Midwest, and in Texas. And they're starting to equate this with the 1930s Dust Bowl. So Iowa's corn industry is in chaos, and everything derived from that corn is going to go up in price. Animal feed's going to go up in price. Popcorn's going to go up in price. Moonshine's going to go up in price. And obviously, any corn-based products at the supermarket are going to see an increase in price in the very, very near future. Okay. Author of the Harry Potter franchise has apparently returned the Robert F. Kennedy Human Rights Award after the organization president called her statements transphobic. As part of her refusal to back down on her stance against aspects of transgender ideology, author J.K. Rowling humbly returned her 2019 Ripple of Hope Award to the Robert F. Kennedy Human Rights Organization after its president called her a transphobe. Now, all J.K. Rowling said was men are men and women are women. And certainly that's true at the genetic level. All the makeup and surgery in the world is not going to change that. So I'm in agreement with J.K. Rowling on this one. All righty. This could have been a Darwin Award. Fortunately, nobody died. But apparently a North Carolina doctor, 66-year-old, was watching a movie on his smartphone while driving his Tesla on autopilot mode. And it crashed into a North Carolina police cruiser. There's a whoopsie for you. That autopilot mode is not really autopilot. You still got to be paying attention to the road here. Okay, we're going to open the phone lines, 800-313-9443. That's 800-313-9443. Call on in. Let's get you on the air with your comments, questions, and opinions. Now, one of my favorite series on TV, and I don't watch a lot of TV, but I watch a lot of the so-called educational channels, and there's been this series, How the Universe Works. And it talks about the latest theories of cosmology. And they had an episode about how water was brought to the Earth by asteroids or comets. But there's a new study out by researchers saying that in point of fact, water was part of the planet Earth from the time our world first formed. And it didn't have to be brought here with comets and asteroids, which if you look at the volume of water that is turning up in the outer solar system, in places like Enceladus and some of the other Jovian and Saturnian moons, which are thought to have oceans of liquid water under an ice crust. Water's just part of the universe. We've got a lot of it. We should be grateful for it. Anyway, SpaceX has launched the first southbound rocket from Florida since 1969, putting an Argentinian Earth observation satellite into polar orbit. This is the first time they've had a southbound rocket launch in more than 50 years. Now, Elon Musk is out there with yet another venture. He can't seem to steady down and focus on the Tesla or SpaceX or whatever. He's got a new project called Neuralink. And this is right out of William Gibson and Neuromancer, where they're going to have a chip that is actually inserted into your brain that allow you to interface with computers just directly with your minds. And he's demonstrated it on pigs, and he appeals for human volunteers. I gotta be honest, I'm curious about that, how that would work. If I were younger and single, I might volunteer. All right, let's take a phone call here from Nathan in California. Hello, Nathan. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Oh, hi, Mike. I just wanted to talk to you real quick about the Rittenhouse shooting in Wisconsin.
Yes.
Okay. Well, the first thing you have to do when you want to see if something is real or fake, and this is what I did, you got to get a screen capture device. Now, you can do this on your Windows 10, or you can do what I've done. You can buy Bandicam for $39, and then you can create a square, and you can zero in on whatever, thing that you want to do. So anyway, on Rittenhouse, I screen captured the actual shooting, when he was shooting one guy, and then he shoots this guy in the arm.
Yeah.
So then after that, you take it and you put it in your Movie Maker app, whatever it is. And then you run it at half speed, you run it at a quarter speed, you run it at 1/8. Now, the first thing I noticed was when he shot the AR-15, there was no muzzle flash. There was nothing, absolutely nothing. The second thing I noticed, on the left side, there appears to be a director jumping up and waving his left hand at the very moment that he shoots, So there's a director on the scene coordinating all this stuff.
What makes you think he's a director?
Huh?
What makes you think he's a director? As opposed to just somebody... Well, there's gunshots going off. I imagine a lot of people are jumping up and down.
No, he's jumping up and he's got his left arm and it's going over his shoulder, like shoot now. You know, this whole thing with Rittenhouse was totally fake. I mean, this is just a bunch of nonsense. Anyway, the other thing that I noticed is, you know, the guy that had his arm shot.
Yes.
Well, you know, like in the Boston bombing, they have all these amputees. So with this guy, you know, he's shot in the arm. His arm isn't blown, you know, all the way back. And the thing that I noticed, he gets half of his arm blown off, but he's still able to hold on to the pistol. I mean, give me a break. You know, you're not going to be holding on to a pistol if you get half of your arm blown off. It's just ridiculous. And so, if you research a little bit about how they do these, you know, fake prosthetic arms, you can see that they have a formula with latex and silicone and fake blood.
Yeah, I'm very familiar with the formula of how that stuff gets done. I would need to see the video clip that you produced in order to be able to comment on it.
I had a video clip over at another thing outside of YouTube, and just as I was up, and this had over 4,000 views, and just as I was uploading part 2, they shut the site down, and it's just like, darn it. I don't know how many people have downloaded, you know, this stuff, but it clearly shows that this is, you know, the whole Rittenhouse thing was absolutely fake.
Well, my understanding is that one of the two people who was shot fatally, not the guy with the pistol, but one of the people who shot fatally, actually grabbed Rittenhauer's gun and tried to take it out of his hands, which, of course, if Rittenhauer had his finger on the trigger, would fire the gun. So he may have caused his own shooting.
Yeah. And the first guy that he shot, he had a, you know, kind of a hood on or whatever and a hole in it. And you only see it for a few seconds, but when you slow it down into slow motion, you know, there's no blood on this hole. There's nothing, absolutely, you know, nothing gushing out of him or whatever. It's just a little line of red, and that's it. So.
Well, remember, you know, your idea of what happens when a bullet hits somebody has probably been shaped by watching movies and TV, which go for the spectacular gushing, you know, exploding blood packs and everything.
Yeah.
But the reality is, you know, with an AR-15 and a .223 bullet, it's going to make a very, very small hole, and depending upon where that hole is, there may not initially be a lot of blood.
Well, I don't know. I heard that when an AR-15 hits you, it tumbles. And
that's after it's inside.
After it's been what?
That's after it's inside your body. Listen, we got to take a break for commercials. Thank you for the phone call. More phone calls after these words from our sponsor. And aloha. Welcome back to our show here. We're going to go back to the phones to Tom in Florida. Hello, Tom. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind? Hello? Tom, are you there?
Can you hear me, Mike?
Yeah, I can hear you now. You're on the air.
Okay, thank you, sir. Yeah, Mike, I just want to say what I was watching today was about Chicago with Lightfoot, I call her Beetlejuice. That was unbelievable what's going on. And so you had 48 shootings over there. What was it, 13 murdered on a weekend?
10 was the number I heard.
What was that?
I said 10 was the number I heard.
Well, I just saw it on OAN. It was 13. They had 13 on there, so I don't know.
Okay.
These figures are all crazy. I don't know what it is. But the real reason I call Mike, is what's going on with these athletes like LeBron and all these athletes like they're gods, and the other guys in the league got to shut their mouth because if the superstars say something, they got to get on their knees and say, yes, master. But like LeBron and all these guys that are getting multi-million-dollar contracts are telling these other guys that England's what to do. I mean, it's unbelievable, man. And sports is just totally politicized right now. The sports world, it's horrifying. The NFL, all of them. NBA is terrible. I think right now that Mike, seriously, I think they're going to lose 80-90% of the viewership. They even said people are not even watching golf anymore because Tiger Woods ain't there. They're not. I mean, you know what? That's going to happen to the rest of these sports franchises. I think boycott them all for the next 10 years. Most of the games are fixed anyway. I think they seem like they're rigged to me. What do you think, Mike?
Well, you know, if you remember the story of the Chicago Black Sox, yeah, rigging of sports events to make money in the off-track betting or the off-venue betting, that's something organized crime tends to do. Can you try and put the microphone of your telephone closer to your mouth?
Can you hear me now?
Much better. Thank you.
Yeah, Mike. Also, what's going on here is with Pam Bondi here in the state of Florida, the ex-attorney general. They had her in a Sunday paper here in the Herald. And let me tell you, she's really exposing Biden and Hunter Biden for how much, and his brothers, how many millions and millions, multiple millions of dollars these people are getting from the government. Bumbling Biden's getting all this money. How is this possible? The brothers building houses in, Iraq or somewhere. He never doesn't know nothing about construction or nothing. So, you know, Mike, I just don't understand it. You know, this guy, the brother don't know nothing about construction, yet he's getting all this money. Millions and multiple millions of dollars in Hunter. It's unbelievable. It really is. So I don't know if you heard about that with Pam Bondi.
I'd heard a little bit about it, but I mean, there's something very shady about the whole Biden family.
It's totally shady, Mike. And they're getting away with, hundreds of millions of dollars, it seems like, according to Pam Bondi. I don't know what to think about that. And if she's telling the truth there, I don't see why she has a reason to lie. To me, it's kind of frightening how these crooked politicians like Pigs Pelosi are getting away with looting California, San Francisco. It's
okay,
crazy.
Tom, got to put you on hold.
Yeah.
Got to take a break for station identification. We'll be right back. Hello and welcome back to our show. We're talking with Tom in Florida. And, you know, Tom, the reality is there are certain families within our country that are untouchable no matter what they do. The Clintons are one such family. The Bushes are another. For the most part, the Kennedys. And now, of course, the Bidens. And, I mean, that deal that Biden did with that Ukrainian oil company or to get that prosecutor fired, those should be looked at, but they're not going to be.
Well, I agree, Michael. And if that was Donald Trump's son, Eric or Don, they would be arrested already, put in jail. They already are threw the key away on them guys. There's no question about it. Yeah, Mike, you know, I did talk to my nephew. He lives up there in the great state of Illinois. And he told me that a lot of people are maybe thinking about voting for Trump this year. But the thing is, in Chicago, from what he's hearing, there's like 25, 30% of the blacks in Chicago, in greater Chicago, that may vote for Trump or to sit out the election period. A lot of blacks are thinking about even sitting out the election in Illinois because what's going on with all the craziness there in the city.
Yes.
So I wouldn't be surprised that state's a lot closer than it seems. I believe Trump's going to pull Wisconsin in the end because this Kenosha nonsense, a lot of these people in the suburbanites, they're going to say, screw this. What you want? This kind of anarchy in your country? It's going to come to your neighborhoods? Forget the cities. The neighborhoods will be burning next. And I'm telling you, Mike, we're getting powder kegs ready to get lit up if this don't stop soon. I really believe it's going to light up in around November 15th. I think it's really going to hit the fireworks show. Either way, because you know, people are getting fed up with this nonsense. Like I said, I know you got a lot of guys that don't like what I have to say, but these blue states, they're getting bluer, and the red states hopefully will get redder because let me tell you, you got these blue states, and all these people in the blue states are fleeing their states so they have to have a chance to get out. They're leaving in massive droves. Matter of fact, Mike, did you hear about the great state of Idaho?
What about it?
All these Californians are moving there.
Yeah.
I believe they had like 16,000 Californians move in that state in the last year. Do you think those people in Idaho want this liberalism brought into their state, like Florida? We don't want this crap. We don't want these insane liberals who bring their nonsense and want state taxes and all that. They want to bring illegal immigration in here. We don't want it. No, all the people I know, we don't want this nonsense.
Well, you know, in defense of the California expats, I mean, the fact that they're moving to Idaho says they're not really in favor of all of that agenda.
Well, Mike, I pray you're right. I've been thinking the same thing. I think you're probably right. Hopefully, but even if 10% of those 100 are saying go over there, that's too many. They don't need to get all these licky, kissy, touchy liberals in there. No way. You know what, Mike? They're not liberal anymore. The Democratic Party is not liberal, Mike. It's radical. It is exactly what Penn said. It is a radical party. They have nothing to do with liberalism. I'm telling you, it's nothing to do with liberalism. It's all about radicalism. They're radicals. They're like a rabid dog. An animal has rabies. That's how these demon rats are acting. So let's just hope, we'll see what happens, Mike, in the next couple of months. It could be really interesting. And I really believe that a lot of blacks will wake up, and I think they're going to say, you know what? I think Trump's going to pull 25% of them. I really do. If he doesn't,
I'm hearing similar numbers. I'm hearing similar numbers.
He's got to put out that Uncle Tom video. Trump should buy like 5 million copies of that and hand them out to all these universities. And I'm telling you, a lot of these college kids, Mike, I believe would sit out. They wouldn't even vote. They'll sit out. They'll sit out the election. I mean, that's a plus for Trump, to have these college punks sit out until they actually learn something about our history and our government, our Constitution. Because these people don't know nothing, Mike. They're actually brain dead. A lot of these licky-kissy liberal Democrats, these teenagers, white, black, Hispanic, they don't understand. They don't want to even learn history about the country. So that's basically all I got really to say. I know you got other callers. I hope you heard a couple of your callers calling, like Miles and a couple other great callers you got. Dave's great. You got some great callers, Joe, Fantasy. But yeah, Mike, I think I'll leave it at that. But I tell you right now, this election here is about the whole future of this country for the next 100 years. I really believe that.
It absolutely is. You're absolutely right.
Get in there. It's going to be utter anarchy either way.
Yes.
Anarchy if we don't get pulled back. At least he'll hold the military, because Bumbling Biden he'll do whatever Kamala tells him. Chameleon will tell him what to do. Trust me. And I wish Trump should run ads. Trump should run ads with Tulsi Gabbard at that one, debate they had when she was just tearing Kamala up. Kamala like she's ready to cry. Remember that?
I remember that. You're right. Trump should run that ad. He should run that clip.
He should run that. Yes, absolutely. But anyway, Michael, thank you. Have a great day, and I know you got other callers, so thank you for taking my call.
All right. Well, thank you for the phone call. We're going to switch over to Mark in North Carolina. Hello, Mark. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind? Mark, are you there? Okay, looks like we lost Mark, so let's go to Joe in Tennessee. Hello, Joe. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind today?
Yeah, that one caller, he talked about that guy holding that pistol after being shot in the arm, and I got to agree on that. I mean, he had a big chunk of his arm missing. I don't know how he held on to that gun. But besides that, I wanted to talk about Ron Paul and this guy that got shot in Portland, this proud patriot or prayer patriot. Now, for a United States senator to be so oblivious to what's going on around him. I mean, he's in Washington, D.C. He's in the lion's den where they hate conservatives. They're having a Black Lives Matter rally the next day. And, yeah, he might have been at the web. For him to walk to the hotel with his wife, I like Rand Paul. I loved his dad, Ron Paul. I voted for him twice. I wrote his name in for president. But this guy, Rand Paul, is too stupid to be president. I'm sorry, but he was there when that one guy, Scalise, got shot at that baseball field, right?
Yes.
I mean, he got his neighbor attack him on his tractor because of the politics. And here he goes. He's going to take a stroll through Washington, D.C., where the Black Lives Matter protests are going on, to his hotel with his old lady. I mean, what kind of a moron is he? I'm sorry. I know what they did is wrong and all that. And
yes,
I
it was.
tell you this, but still, I mean, you're a United States senator. You don't have better sense than that?
It sounds to me like you're trying to say this is all Rand Paul's fault for wanting to walk from the White House to his hotel. And yes,
no,
maybe he should have taken a taxi.
Is people should be aware of the kind of crazy savages that are out there. I mean, can't you read the newspaper and see what's going on around you and understand that you're in basically Indian territory, you might say, Have a little sense.
Well, I mean, in defense of Rand Paul, it may be that because of the crowd that was formed in front of the White House, that taxi cabs couldn't get in to take the people away.
You're a United States senator. It's just, to me, I just couldn't believe it, that he would be that stupid, to tell you the truth. I mean, like I said, he was there when Scalise got shot. I mean, he was by a crazed lunatic. He was there when his lunatic neighbor attacked him when he was riding around on his tractor.
Yes.
I just, it's like, it's hard for me to support people that aren't smart enough to, I invest my emotional liking of somebody, and then to have them to be so
Joe, let me ask you a question. Okay, let's say for a moment you're Rand Paul. You've just finished watching the president give a speech at the White House. What are you going to do? You can't find a taxi.
I'm come outside, and if there's so good security, I'm going to call. I'm a United States senator. I'd call one of my aides to come by in his car and pick me up, or I'd go back in and say, "Hey, President Trump, can you get some Secret Service out here to help cordon this off?" I mean, he's not powerless. He shouldn't have done it anyway. They have a way for cars to go in and out of there. I'm just saying it was pretty damn stupid on his part. I'm sorry. I mean, I'm not trying to blame the victim here, but I do. And it's the same way with this guy that gets shot in Portland. I mean, you go through driving through Portland. I used to protest. I was a 9/11 protester. We were very unpopular. But
yes,
I had a bulletproof vest I kept in the trunk of my car and a rifle in case I needed it. I mean, I tried to think that, I knew where to go, but if I saw things getting out of hand, I would get the hell out of Dodge. And I hate to see people wasting their lives for stupid stuff like this, to have a Trump parade through enemy territory where the DA, where the mayor, the chief of police are all on the side of the people that want to kill you and tear you up, is the height of stupidity. And I'm just saying this because I believe in doing things. I mean, I believe in protests. I believe in getting their face. But you don't go where the refs are on their side, where everything's on their side, where, they've already got Proud Boys locked up in prison over in Portland and on charges of felonies for waving flags. Yet the people this guy that shot this guy had been caught with guns and all, and he's right back out on the street. So you got to have some common sense. And Rand Paul and this Portland guy both lack it, in my opinion. And I just think it's time for people on the right to get a little bit more common sense and maybe a little bit less balls. How's that? I mean, I like balls. I'm a big balls guy myself. But you got to combine that with some common sense. And we're headed for some dangerous times. And you just got to take into consideration how dangerous these people we're dealing with are. They're very, very dangerous. And for a United States senator who was involved in a shooting, who got attacked by his neighbor, to not appreciate the danger that you're dealing with here in a Democratic-controlled city like Washington, D.C., with a Black Lives Matter protest the next day, with crazy white people, lefties, communists, and to not understand, how there are people that would like to tear him limb from limb. Because they're crazy.
Well, Rand Paul obviously thought that the crowd would be aware that he wrote that bill to ban no-knock warrants, and they didn't. They didn't, and
they don't know how to read half of them.
Genuinely puzzled by their ignorance.
Yeah, that's kind of funny. I don't think they know how to read or spell her name. They're repeaters, but they're crazy and they're dangerous. And I don't like seeing our resources be put to waste and risked unnecessarily. And that's what I want to see is great to protest. It's great to get in their face, but you got to do it smart. You got to be smart. You got to think like they're out to get you, because I got news for you. They are out to get you. From the mayor, from the governor, they're, especially when you go in left-wing states, and they're out to get you. And when you do unpopular cause like 9/11 or end the Fed, they're out to get you too. And you got to be smart, because the police will arrest you, and they'll send in people to get you entrapped. They'll send in people that stir up crap to get the police to show up. And then if you do the wrong thing with the police, you get locked up. So just guys, they're like I say, it's just stupid stuff. I just hate to see stupid stuff, because they will throw the book at you like it's nobody's business. Yet it's just because of your politics, you know, and yet they'll let the left get away with bloody murder, and then, and look at what happened in Portland. That was a complete execution. It's horrible. But the guy, I mean, that's what's going to happen if you go into where there's all these left crazies. They do left crazy shit. Excuse my French. That's what they do. So
please don't swear on your radio.
Yeah, I'm sorry about that.
Yeah, okay.
I guess I'll go. All right, you can. I'll go on a punishment tour here for a couple days.
Yes.
Sorry about that.
10 Bloody Marys and 5 Hello Dollies. That's your penance.
All right, thanks, Mike. Bye.
All right, thanks an awful lot for the phone call. We're going to switch over to David in Boston. Hello, David. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Aloha, Michael.
Aloha, David.
Yeah, I appreciated the compliment from Tom because it's reciprocal. I feel the same way about Tom. He's rapid fire. He talks very fast, but that's okay because he's always on target. He never misses the target. So if you talk too fast and you keep missing the target, you got a problem. But if you talk fast and you keep hitting bullseyes, I'm good with that. But anyways, Michael, I know you're familiar back here with New England.
Yes.
I had a beautiful day yesterday. It was a beautiful day, and I went down to the town where I was born. And I used to make a joke of it with some of the Catholic priests and nuns and everything. I used to, when they'd ask me where I was from, I'd say, well, I'm a child of Hull. And the nuns would say, what did you just say? And I said, I'm a child of Hull. David, don't say that about yourself. You're such a nice boy and everything. I said, no, I'm a child of Hull, not hell. Everything. But anyway, so I was down in Hull where I was born.
Yes.
I left there when I was 2. My father, a World War II veteran, fought in the South Pacific and everything. And my mother was a World War II veteran in the SPAs. But my father got appointed to the Boston Fire Department, Mike, and I don't know if it's still the rule, but back in the day, you had to, if you were going to be on the Boston Fire Department, you had to live within the city limits. It was the rule, you know. He moved up to Mattapan, which was a nice neighborhood, but then when the blacks moved in the 70s and 80s, it became known as Murderpan. I didn't even realize I was going to say that, but Mattapan went from Murderpan when the blacks moved in. But this is where I'm going with this, Mike. I have a friend, and he's a relatively new friend. I actually met him at a Back to Blue rally.
Yes.
And I'm very ambivalent about backing the Blue. I almost went there to just kind of see what was going on more than actually being a fanatic about backing the Blue. But I just saw it, and this was just about a month, so he's a relatively new friend of mine that I met at a Back to Blue rally. But anyways, he has a home at the top of a hill down. Are you a little bit familiar with how that's where the famous Nantasket Beach is?
Yes.
Yeah. So for the audience, it's like a small cape between Boston and Boston Harbor and Cape Cod. This small cape comes out and ends in Hull, Hull.
Yes.
And but anyways, I'm up on this deck. The first I practically lost my breath, and you know, and my new friend's name is David. Also, I says, Dave, I says, this is $1 million view. I can't believe, you know. And I says, actually, it's probably like $1 billion view. But anyways, Mike, where I'm going with this, we sat up there. And we could see off in the distance the whole Boston skyline. We could see all the bridges, for example, like the Tobin Bridge that connects Boston with Chelsea and everything, you know, and we could see the ships coming in and out of Boston Harbor, and we could see all the jets taking off and landing at Logan International Airport, and you know, and just all the yachts, and it was a beautiful day. It's summertime, all the yachts and motorboats. And everything, and, you know, and I said to Dave, Dave, you know, I said, I'm amazed at what our race has achieved, and I'm very humble, Michael. I don't even feel worthy to be a member of the white race. I marvel at my race, and I don't even feel worthy. That's why I have a saying that it's not a right to be white; it's a privilege. I feel like, and I haven't been privileged. I'm not talking about white privilege. I just feel like it's a privilege for me to be. I'm proud to be a member of the white race because I marvel at my race. I could never begin to achieve all the things they've achieved. But anyways, so I said to David, I says, listen, I says, this Black Lives Matter, in their cancel culture, tearing down all our statues of everybody and all the, I don't have, Christopher Columbus, who was the quintessential Renaissance man. He was far more than just a sea captain. But I said, listen, Dave, I said, these blacks, and let me just quickly say, good black folks don't want anything to do with that Black Lives Matter. And a lot of white trash fem scum do want to have a lot to do with it. There's just as much white fem scum with those radical, violent blacks. But I said to, so, I want to be clear on this. I don't want to lump good church-going, good Christian black folks in with these evil Black Lives Matter criminals. But anyways, having said that, Mike, I says, listen, the Black Lives have a hell of a nerve tearing down all our statues and the cancel culture. Look at their culture. I says, they're tearing down Christopher Columbus, who was far more than just a sea captain. He was a quintessential Renaissance man, if you study about his life. But anyways, I says, those blacks, their greatest navigational achievement was probably a very crude dugout canoe on the Congo River. I says, look at those jets flying, David. I says, these blacks from Black Africa and everything, their greatest aeronautical achievement was perhaps swinging from a vine, swinging from one tree to another on a vine. That was their greatest aeronautical.
I think you're kind of oversimplifying things there a little bit. I mean, there were there were the pirates of Tripoli, for example. They were master sailors, and let's not forget the.
I'm not talking, Mike. I wasn't talking about that. I'm talking about Black Africa, like in the black. I'm not talking about the Muslims up in North Africa. That's different.
I hear what you're saying. All right, David, I got to let you go. We got to take a break for commercials. We'll be back with more phone calls after these few words. Welcome back to our show. We're going to go back to the phone here to Mark in North Carolina. Hello, Mark. Thank you for waiting patiently. What's on your mind?
Hey, how you doing, Mike? Listen, Mike, a couple of things. One is, about this thing about COVID now, that it's, very small percentage of people actually died of COVID and all
6%. 6%.
Yeah. I mean, if people don't wake up, I made a video today on YouTube about that too. I also made one over the weekend about what happened with the huge demonstrations in both Britain and in Germany. They woefully underestimate the crowd. I was watching it live for a while on RT, or roughly part of RT. It looked to me like there were hundreds of thousands of people in both of those demonstrations, especially one in London. And they were all doing it without face masks. They weren't social distancing. I'll bet you very few, if anybody, is going to come down with anything. And if you notice that that bicycle race in South Dakota there, not a bicycle race, usually they get together they have every year there. Very few people have come down with anything. A few people, I don't know why they get themselves tested in the first place. Tested positive, I think 40 people or something like that out of 500,000. And they're probably unsymptomatic on top of it, most likely. So this is what's going on. And yet, these clowns keep on wanting to lock us down. They want us to keep on wearing these stupid masks. You listen to the mainstream media, they don't even talk about what happened by these demonstrations. They don't talk about the thing about the CDC that's come out today, and they try to keep that as secret as possible. They this is basically what it is. This whole thing, I'm realizing more and more, is a scam. Well, this is not scam. Whether there's any kind of virus at all, or they're just using something else to make it seem like a virus, I don't know. But whatever it is, it seems to me the only thing they want to do is they want to take away our freedom. They want to put in things that they want to do for a long time, including announcements about global warming. If you notice, Bill Gates said something about if we don't do something about climate change, it will make things like this much worse. So you can see what their agenda is. Like, their agenda is basically to, for the globalists and the billionaire class, the ruling class, to have it their way, and everybody else becomes basically a slave. And then you have this, these riots with Black Lives Matter and Antifa, which is really the same thing. And all they're doing is they're playing into the very hands of the very people they seem to be want to rebel against, the ruling class. They're actually doing their work, and that's why the Soros winds up funding them. Some of these other billionaires too, like Gates is behind BLM, and Soros is behind anti-vaxxing. So that's basically all they're doing. Like they just want total control. They hate the common man. They think basically we're all deplorables, and we better wake up and we better do something about it very, very quickly. I was very happy to see that this thing in Germany and in Britain, but I was not very happy that we don't have something like this in the United States going on right now. Just seem to be dealing with, just going along with the program. You still see the people with the silly masks on.
Mm-hmm.
You see people like one of our whatever you call us there in New Jersey. I won't mention his name this time, but I think you know who I mean. Who seems to think this thing is the most serious thing since the Black Plague, and maybe even worse. Okay, and people, I don't know. They frighten so easily. You got to wonder how we won World War II, fighting two of the major powers in the world. If we're that cowardly that we're afraid of a virus that's not even really much of a virus, okay, how will we be able to beat the two mightiest nations in the world? And that brings me to what's going on with Russia, how we keep on poking the stick in Russia and in China.
Yep.
Do we really think with the kind of population we have today, the kind of cowards that they would have to, get to go in the military, because we don't have enough people in the military now, and I believe they're picking a lot from the bottom of the barrel these days anyway. It's not like right after 9/11 when people bought the idea that we're under attack by the quote-unquote Islamist terrorists rather than our own government and the governments of Israel and Saudi Arabia. But now, how are they going to expect to get the volunteers, or if they have to draft? Do they think these punks who run around with a mask on their face, thinking that they're dealing with something worse than the Black Plague or something like that? You think these type of people could stand up to the military power of Russia and China, especially Russia, who I think probably the best army in the world today?
No, all Russia and China would have to do is say we're using germ warfare, and everybody, would run like crazy. Anyway, listen, Mark, I got to let you go. We got to take another break for commercials. Welcome back to our show here, and looking at the email. I've got an email here from somebody who I presume was originally a Californian. Said, I had a coworker and another coworker moving to Idaho. They are probably more conservative than native Idahoans. I moved to Tennessee, and I think I'm more conservative than these very conservative people of Tennessee. I love Tom from Florida calling in, but I get sick of people saying that, quote, we're bringing our liberalism with us, end quote. Not true. I'd call us political refugees. Okay, we're going to go back to the phones to Bob in North Carolina. Bob, thank you for waiting so patiently. What's on your mind?
Thank you, Mike. Can you hear me well, Michael?
I can hear you, and you're on the air.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, just like that last caller had stated, I think there's a lot of division going on. The masses have been deceived and placated, absolutely. But we need to come together, and I don't hear a lot of unity, and I always hear this blanket statement of people, Tom, who calls, or Mark. It's always this picking a fight with someone, this infighting. And even the owner of your station, John Stadmiller, has been picking a fight with that Vanelli guy who used to be on your station. He might be anymore. But, I mean, it's silly, it's petty, it's narcissistic in a sense. And it's becoming, if I could use a portmanteau, a delusionoid, a little bit of delusion and paranoia together. For instance, the guy who called earlier saying that he slowed down the scene, and he thinks that there was a director on site. I mean, oh my God, ridiculous. He probably believes in lizard people, the Mandela effect, flat Earth, the moon landing was fake, all that stuff. And Steve Elkins from your station also, and Chris Hinckley, he has a show. They push this. Everything's a hoax. Everything's a put-up job. Yes, is there lie hop, my hop, and high hop? Help it happen, make it happen, let it happen on purpose. Yes. This happens, but again, it's a way to divide us up. You know, the Black Lives Matter want to draw a straight line from slavery to today and want us to atone for their sins. And then these other fellas, like on the talk shows, right-wing talk show, it's almost like they've created a form of a modified limited hangout, because it really goes nowhere except for infighting, and it gets us nowhere because you can't draw a straight line from the constitutional founding fathers to today. We have the Act of 1871 in between there. There are a lot of things that have happened. So I want to come into something more contemporaneous that would help us. Instead of this infighting, we need to unite. You know,
Yes.
saying that the young people couldn't, you know, even you, but Mike, you run the show, and you even state yourself that, well, these young people, they couldn't do anything. A blanket statement about millennials. I know a lot of really good young people who love this country, and they will stand up for it. Just like that young fella, that wasn't a put-up job. That Rittenhouse kid's going to go to jail for life probably, and he did what he had to do. Maybe he was misled. I don't know where he came from, but I did research the story. You know, your Steve Elkins tried to say that the George Floyd thing was a hoax. Oh, yeah, I know it's a hoax. It's a hoax. He didn't. I researched it. I called with John Stadmiller sitting there, and they made fun of me, and they shut me down. They tell me, you don't need to call anymore. I've been told by many people, you know, so again, limited hangout here. You have some good callers. You have some terrible callers. I'm probably one of the terrible callers to everybody. I don't care what they think about me. I love my country. I work in a hospital. I have to wear a mask. This is real. We're not saying that we're paranoid about it. I mean, oh my God, we push back all the time. We make changes from the inside. There are so many good people. You know, even everybody attacks Alex Jones, and yeah, he's a psycho. I get it. He was even saying all the nurses and doctors are having sex at the hospital. They're not doing anything. People follow orders. And when I talk to the military people, I say, look, right now we're following orders. And until I find them to be unconstitutional or they cross the line, then we'll have something to do about it. But right now, we need to go along to get along, not with the hoax, but with information that can help us. And a lot of times this station does put out some of that information, but your shows become unlistenable because of the infighting and the same callers who are just, you know, you guys get together and have a shootout, have a fight. But let's, you're smarter than this, Michael.
Okay.
And you live in Indiana.
Your point is taken.
You should get up to Park County, Wabash Valley. Beautiful area. Maybe a few covered bridges are there. Maybe some old country hillbilly white boys haven't burned them down yet, like they did in my neighborhood when I grew up. Okay, every man in my family served in the military. We love our country. We respect the flag. I've heard even Chris Hinckley, so-called road warrior, said he doesn't celebrate Veterans Day anymore, or he doesn't want to honor it. What is he talking about? What are you guys talking about sometimes? And John Stadmiller always wants to fight. He always gets mad and angry. He'd have hung up on me a long time ago. So, Michael, I appreciate you letting me have this word. I want us to come together. There's a ton of good information we can put out.
There is, and your point is taken about the rancor, and I do try and throw a little cold water on the animosity that's going back and forth. Sometimes it's a little hard because I can't reach through the microphone with a bucket of water, much as I'd like to on occasion.
I understand. But so referring to the Act of 1871, you do understand we're not under the original Constitution, correct?
I understand that we're under something that's been seriously mutated since then.
Well, the Act of 1871, gave us back to the London bankers, and now we have our national banks, and here we are with the Federal Reserve in this century. Right now, the dollar's the king. I hear guys saying that they want to get rid of the dollar and everything, but all the other countries around the world, how would that? It would be like a Vietnam era where, or Korea, when they said now the blue dollars instead of the red dollars. I mean, what are you going to change the color and the denomination? I don't understand what there's no replacement. It's going to go cryptocurrency. There's a lot of opportunity there. There's a lot of opportunity. They've been giving the money away in the stock market. That's what we need to do. People need, to learn about that. Is it going to fall? Yeah, but you protect yourself. But people have missed out on one of the greatest movements in the stock market in the last 6 months. It's unbelievable. It went back to 2017 levels. Now it's at new highs.
Well, the Dow took like about a 270-point drop today.
And you can make money on a drop too. There's something called inverse ETFs, and exchange traded funds are a wonderful way to invest. People make fun of the people on Robinhood. Well, if you're a rookie, there's dummies everywhere. That's the whole idea of gambling, or two sides of a bet or trade. You know, just outsmarting the other guy, or at least doing your homework and knowing which way things will go and being in that place. That's capitalism, Michael. And there's a lot of other things going on too. But all this crazy infighting and people buying guns and bullets and everything, I mean, I get it, but you can't eat those, and it is not going to help your family. And look what it's done to these kids. They think we're on our own. The cops aren't going to save us. The political system, if you're looking for morals, ethics from your politicians, then you're making a big mistake. We need to unite as an American family, and we're under a big psyop where they're dividing us up.
I agree. You're absolutely right. You're absolutely right.
It is our duty to train our children up right. And so, yeah, the schools, we send our children to school, but I'm the number one educator of my children. That doesn't mean they don't have another education coming. And now what they're doing with them at home, it's difficult for them. We're all going through difficult times, but we don't need to divide up and say, oh, these kids, and they're wearing the mask, and they're doing this, and let's help them. Let's unite. Let's come up with ideas that can help them. That's what we do in our community. And that's what we're trying to do in our family and everywhere else, Michael. But these guys calling in, and you guys want to have a pissing match with each other, get in a group and do it. But, man, your format, Mike, I used to listen to you for years and years and years. You used to be a Mensa member. I used to love it. I mean, it was wonderful. But even more online, it's getting to the point that, sorry.
No, your point is well taken, and I got to rein in some of the insanity and the infighting and get back to more news. Anyway, listen, Bob, thanks an awful lot for the phone call, and we're going to switch over to Miles in Maine. Miles, thank you very much for waiting patiently. What's on your mind?
Yeah, aloha, Michael. You know, this is just perplexing to me. You have this incident, and they're all worried about the 17-year-old kid, but the three felons that have guns that shouldn't have guns, and obviously either the background check failed, which I doubt, or something went wrong. But what's perplexing here, Michael, is the local police have gaffed up and not done any investigation on it. You know, the FBI has done nothing on it. The ATF has done nothing on it. And the Democrats are the ones that call for all and want all these laws implemented, but not one of them are saying, hey, you know, this went on here. Why isn't it being investigated? Now, if this was any of these false flag shootings that have gone on all around, they'd be, you know, saying we've got this whole host of laws to pass and it needs to be investigated. How did they get the gun? Like the kid in Florida, they kept that on forever and ever. But yet we hear nothing about it. And we hear, you know, Black Lives Matter just keep marching on, killing one after another, and killing the police, and telling them they're going to attack the police in the suburbs, but no one's declared them a terrorist threat or anything. And it's really perplexing, you know. It's really perplexing that nothing, not anything has happened. Not an inquiry, not an investigation, nothing's going on.
Yep. You're right about that. I mean, we should start seeing more action. I mean, now they're talking about, you know, a delay in his potential trial. And there's something odd about that, definitely. Anything else, Miles?
Yeah, and, well, you know, other than, you know, Trump, when's Trump going to protect his supporters, too, by the way? You know, I like Trump when he's good, and when he's not good, I say he's not good. You know, I mean, when is Trump going to come out here and back the people that back him? You know what I mean? The police are getting attacked. He's doing nothing. You know, I mean, when is there going to be, you know, for the next 90 days, this is in effect. Don't be out on the streets. Don't be this or whatever. Shoot to kill. Whatever they need to straighten this up. I mean, that's what we need now. And I just think that something needs to be implemented somewhere. And I just wanted to warn Mark from North Carolina. I don't think he's going to dissuade Dustin from wearing his mask, no matter what kind of numbers. Thanks, Michael. Have a great show.
All right, thanks an awful lot. And we're going to switch to Dustin in New Jersey. Hello, Dustin. I guess your ears must be burning by now. What's on your mind?
Mike, holy crap. Miles, you're Nostradamus. Mike, when's the next colonization of the sun? Yeah, you know? I mean, come on. Look what's going on. My God, I'm looking. I'm like, you know, people, Mike, I said this last with Kyle Rittenhouse. They portray him as a hero. Was the killer of Jay Bishop in Portland a hero? There is no heroes. They're all zeros, Mike. What you got going on, Mike, is Bloods versus the Crips. That's what it is. It's all the extremists are coming out of the woodworks from both sides, right?
Yes.
So, like, let me talk about Jay Bishop, guys. Oh, you know, the guy, you know, the Patriot Prayer guys, right? He, you know, look into his background. He ain't Mother Teresa. I mean, he supported Jeremy Christian. Mike, I don't know if you heard of Jeremy Christian. He's the one who stabbed a couple of people on that train.
Yeah.
In Portland, Oregon. Yeah. Like, there's no, Mike, they're not winners, they're all losers. And that includes Kyle Rittenhouse. Okay, look, what you got going on, please, guys, don't do GoFundMe with RBN. Don't do GoFundMe with these people. To do GoFundMe with Jay Bishop is like doing a GoFundMe with, like, We Build the Wall. You know, Mike? Like,
yes.
I mean, you're just throwing your freaking money away. Contribute to RBN. I mean, we call in at least, like Mike, we call in, we give our views. Mike, I'm not out there shooting people. These guys, both sides, are insane. Okay?
Yes.
Like, they shouldn't be there. It's the police and the National Guard who are there. And you might not like the response time or the response, but that's not you to decide. All you vigilantes and militias, go home, because you saw what the Wacosa, Wisconsin guy, mayor said, right? He said, like,
Kenosha.
just go home.
Yes.
Yeah, Wacosa. Like, I mean, come on, guys. Like, stay home. Don't get involved in this, because you know what? You're just being dragged into a, you know, it's like the Untouchables, Mike. I used this before. You bring a knife, I bring a gun. I send one of yours to the hospital. You know, you send one of mine to the morgue. Well, vice versa. But you know what I mean. Like,
I know what you mean.
Yeah, I mean, come on, guys. I mean,
we're already hearing that rhetoric. I mean, there was this one leader out there screaming, you know, for every time they kill a black person, we have to kill a white person.
And you know what, Mike? It's not about we're all Americans. Or, I mean, come on, we're all human beings. I mean, look at what's going on here. Look, Mike, you saw what's going on in Berlin, right? With the protests against the mask. I'm going to go through that tomorrow with Mark with the 6% CDC number. I'll explain that to you guys tomorrow with the comorbidities. But we're not involved in this, guys. We call into the show. We're all civil. But this is the percentage that's not civil on both sides. Not one, but both. Okay? And we got to keep it civil. And, Mike, you know what? I got kind of angry Thursday because I know Friday had internet problems about the Jews, the black. I'm not black or I'm not Jewish, but it's like, please stop with this rhetoric. We're all human beings, guys. I mean, you know, like, come on. You know, it's all the Jews' fault, Mike. It's all the Palestinians' fault, right? It's all the Arabs' fault or the Muslims. It's not. Okay? I mean, we got to just, I don't know, what's up? I'm looking for that word, Mike. It's just as human beings, we got to, like, basically have some critical thinking skills and sit down and just think before you speak. Because I got angry at Joe, actually.
Yeah, but that's not being taught in the schools anymore.
And it's not, but it's not being taught anywhere, Mike, because Joe kind of went off the rails the other day, You know what I mean with Joe from Tennessee. It's the same with the Chinese. We got to drop a tactical nuke on the Wuhan bios weapons laboratory. Well, Mike, have a good night. You guys can call in. Let me know what you think. But I just everybody relax. Okay, Mike? Have a good night.
All right, Dustin, thanks a lot. We're going to let you go. We're coming up on the last segment of our program. I don't know that I'm going to get to all the phone calls, but I'll do my best. We'll be right back. Welcome back to our show here. Last segment of our program today. We're going to go to the phones to Steve in West Virginia. Hello, Steve. What's on your mind today?
Yeah, I might got a couple quick points. You had that one guy text in.
Hello?
Hello?
Hello, we lost connection with you for a second. We had that one guy who emailed me in saying that they're conservatives in California.
Yeah, and he's saying that that he's more conservative than Tennesseans and stuff. Being conservative is totally subjective. I grew up in the San Francisco Bay Area, Marin specifically. I know you're familiar with the area. I lived 20 years in Oregon. Now I live in West Virginia. Mike, I can tell you right now that the California people, they're a different kind of conservative. They want a green economy. Even the most conservative Californian, if he moves to another state, he doesn't want heavy industry. He wants a green economy. They usually, a lot of them don't like guns, or if they'll tolerate them, but they're not gun lovers like a lot of the people I see in West Virginia and Oregon. They tend to be on the NIMBY side, if you know what I mean. And they use their house as their primary investment vehicle to fund everything they're going to do in the future. And to me, that's very oppressive. It's oppressive for the people that live around you and everything. Everything is based on what the property values will be in the future, because they're going to use that house to eventually downsize and retire down. So what it does is it forces everybody around you to be oppressed, because you have to keep up with the Jones mentality. So I don't really I don't think that what he said is accurate. I find it, a lot different. Anyways, one other quick thing, and I'm off. The guy that said 2 callers ago about the stock market, I've made more money in this stock market in the last, 8 months than I have in the last 4 years. And I'm actually a pretty decent trader. The V recovery, when you got a V recovery, there's tons of opportunities. So that guy was right on the money about that. Out there, even callers. I've even heard people like Mark from North Carolina, they're afraid of the stock market. So, but, if you study it, you don't need to be afraid of it. Anyways, Mike, have a good show.
All right, thanks an awful lot. We're going to switch to Paul in New Jersey. Paul, what's on your mind?
Yeah, I just wanted to allude to what Mark was saying about how the elite see people as trash. I've been doing this experiment for the past year. This summer, I go down to my local swimming hole. When I go there, I bring a bag and I clean up the garbage. And try doing that every, few days, cleaning up other people's garbage for months and months. And you'll hate the common man. And this is what I'm saying about the elite, and the elite should look down on the common man. Most common men are complete scum. They're illiterate. They attend ball games. And enlightened people, you don't want to go around having to educate them and indoctrinate them.
All right, Paul, I got to let you go. I'm sorry, we're out of time. The music's playing. My apologies to those callers that I was not able to get to. Please call in tomorrow. Stay tuned for John Stadtmiller. I'm sure he's got lots of interesting things to share with you. Please spread the word of RBN. Spread the word of whatreallyhappened.com. Please donate. We need your help to keep doing what we're doing. We'll see you tomorrow. Aloha, America.